The Valley Green Vegan Podcast for Born Again Eaters is brought to you by Valley Green Naturals, a natural ingredient manufacturing company producing head-to-toe personal care products for clean living. Stay tuned to the end of this podcast for a special offer from Valley Green Naturals just for our listeners. Hello again, my fellow Born Again Eaters. Welcome back. I'm Cindy, and you're listening to the Valley Green Vegan Podcast. Thanks so much for joining me today. So, I'm hoping that everyone in the Northern Hemisphere is really enjoying the fall season wherever you happen to live. I have to mention which hemisphere I'm in because my daughter, who is the co-author of the Valley Green Vegan food blog that we have, Chef Amberly, is living in Australia. And they are just now entering into spring. So, got to make that clear. We're in the Northern Hemisphere enjoying our fall season here. And we live in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where every fall season is truly a spectacular event. It is so beautiful here. If you've ever heard of the Blue Ridge Parkway, it's one of those bucket list items. You've got to drive it to really understand how spectacular it is here. So for someone who absolutely loves to cook, me, and particularly I really love to make soups. Well, fall is just my absolute favorite time of the year. Now, since this will be my very first fall season as a vegan, having turned to a 100% plant-based diet only 9 months ago, I've been thinking about ways to transform my old favorite cream and chowder soup recipes into healthy, plant-based vegan dishes. And that can be a challenge, as all of us who have made this transition know. I've said before in previous podcast episodes, but just as a reminder, I was probably one of the most carefree cooks in the past when it came to using heavy creams and butters in my recipes. I mean, honest to God, I thought, the more cream, the better it tasted. And everybody loved it and everybody complimented my dishes. But honestly, it is no wonder that my overall cholesterol back then was a whopping 250. So I've changed my ways since then, my wicked ways, and through lots of experimentation and trial and error, I've discovered some ways to produce full, rich, creamy soups and chowders without any dairy. Oh, and as of my latest blood work, which was just a couple weeks ago, I have also knocked 54 points off my overall cholesterol in the process of changing these recipes. All of the recipes, actually, that I used to make with creams and butters and cheeses. Oh my gosh, cheeseaholic here for sure. But I knocked 54 points off my cholesterol in only 9 months. So that really should tell you how much healthier this diet is. And, the key to thick soup success really is knowing which starches to add to your ingredients. And also which seasonings can really bring out each dish's delicious flavors. So something that has been really important to me as a born again eater is truly thinking about the nutritional content of my recipe ingredients. And, really, basically whatever I'm eating at any given time on any given day. I mean, if I go to the refrigerator out of boredom and I open it up and I think, okay, I'm going to have a snack, I'm going to grab blueberries or raspberries or something like that. Sometimes I still use food for comfort. Usually it's when I'm bored or anxious, but even in those moments, I do try to make the healthiest choices. Like, should I have a bowl of tortilla chips and salsa? Or should I slowly savor a half cup of walnuts, which is still kind of a lot of walnuts, by the way, but if you're eating for comfort food, what the heck? Walnuts are one of Dr. Greger's daily dozen suggestions for a healthful diet. It's one of those items I can check off that daily dozen list because they are so incredibly good for you. So I could actually sit at my computer or my laptop and just munch on little walnut pieces slowly and savor them rather than eating a big bowl of tortilla chips and salsa. I'll be honest, sometimes the chips and salsa win that thought process, but more often than not, I will opt for a more nutritious choice. Okay, but now I've completely digressed. So getting back to making creamy, dairy-free soups and chowders, there are lots of starchy options available to thicken your soup and give them that silky, decadent broth the way cream and butter does. But some starch options are way more healthful than others. starch, let me just talk about starch for a minute. Starch is pretty handy in cooking because its molecules thicken and take on water when it's exposed to heat. So in turn, this reaction will take any liquid from really runny to making it thick and creamy. And an obvious and really common starch choice would be potatoes. And I'll admit, I mean, I do love potatoes as long as they're organic, and I do use them often. And actually, I always use them in my chowders. And by the way, the thing about organic, if you didn't listen to my last episode about the Dirty Dozen, go back and listen to, I think it's episode 11, and I talk about the Dirty Dozen list. So if you're buying potatoes, that's one of those items that you should be buying organic to avoid pesticides. Okay, back on track here. Other options for thickening your soups, of course, are rice, but also bread, cornmeal, cereal grains. Those can give you that good creamy consistency, all dairy-free. And if you're like me, you might sometimes have some leftover stale ends from a loaf of sourdough bread, or I love rosemary bread. I actually buy it at Wegmans, and I often, we can't eat the whole loaf. So I end up with these little wrapped up extra pieces, and you can use those. I mean, they're frequently used actually to thicken soups in some of the European recipes. Like there's one called Italian, and forgive my translation or my pronunciation here, ribollita, I think is what it's called. It's a really yummy Tuscan soup just made with leftover bread and vegetables. You can check that out online because that's another good vegan option too. Other grains like, barley, oatmeal, those can have a similar effect and really create a more hearty flavor and consistency. And then every chef's secret to creating a silky sauce is leftover pasta water. So always reserve a cup before you drain your pasta. That's just a lesson I've learned in cooking. It does truly come in handy when you're mixing in your sauces. Now, some folks really like to thicken their soups with noodles. And of course, depending on the type of noodle you choose, you can achieve your desired thickness and heartiness really easily. Now, myself, I like to use noodles more for broth soups, like, vegetable soup, or my version of chicken noodle, which is made with seasoned and sauteed tempeh, carrots, celery, potato, the works for chicken noodle soup, but I use tempeh instead as my substitute for the chicken. And by the way, it is awesome. I'll have to post that one on the recipe blog as well. But the best secret of all that I've discovered in transforming my cream soups and chowder recipes to dairy-free is that adding a can of northern white beans to your soup recipe, along with a few pulses from an immersion blender, will create the most creamy, decadent, and nutritious dairy-free soup you've ever tasted. Remember that legumes are one of the most nutrient-dense foods that we can eat. And I don't know about you, but I'd sure rather make my soup thick and creamy with something that adds some essential nutrients to my diet than just using, plain old bread or rice. Those are good. But when you've got this option available to you, why not choose the nutrient-dense version? So what I do, for example, with my potato and corn chowder, which is on our food blog, by the way, at Valley Green Vegan, I'll leave a link down below. You can add a can of either cannellini or Great Northern white beans, along with all the other ingredients, potatoes, corn, carrots, veggie stock, onions, and seasonings. I let it simmer for around about half an hour. And then I take my little immersion blender. And if you don't have one of these, it's well worth a purchase off Amazon. Some people call it a stick blender, and it comes in so handy for so many things. I'll leave a link in the show description below to the one on Amazon that I bought, and you can check that out. So I take my little stick blender and I just pulse it in the hot soup 4 or 5 times, just enough to mush up the beans. You don't want to overblend it because you really still want plenty of chunky potatoes and carrots, carrot slices left in your chowder. But this by far, the small step is the best method I've found for giving your soup creamy thickness and also providing some darn good nutritional value. The same method can be used with cannellini beans when you're making like vegan cream sauces, but I will save that one for another podcast episode because that's a whole nother subject where I get into soaking cashews and things like that too when I make my mac and cheese. Oh, it's so good. But anyway, that is all the time that we have left for today. Thank you so much for listening, guys. Hey, if you have enjoyed this podcast, please do give us a thumbs up and a good review. It really helps those little algorithms out there in moving our podcast to the top of search engines so that more folks can find us. And if you haven't already checked it out, be sure to visit our vegan recipe blog at valleygreenvegan.com and hit the subscribe button, and you'll get our recipes and new podcast episodes in real time every time they're posted. And we don't bombard you. We don't sell your email address or anything like that. Your email is safe with us. So check that out, subscribe, and everybody please stay happy and healthy and enjoy this beautiful fall season and go make some delicious soups. I'll see you next time. Take care. Hey guys, just a little postscript I wanted to mention. Many of us who are looking to live a clean and natural lifestyle are always on the lookout to avoid toxins in our daily lives. Even before I was diagnosed with cancer in 2017, I always tried to eat a healthy diet of organic foods and use clean ingredient products, cleaning materials, things like that. I was so into the natural and organic lifestyle that I actually started a company that produces clean ingredient body care products. That was 13 years ago, and my company, Valley Green Naturals, is still going really strong today. So what started as a soap making hobby in my farmhouse kitchen all those years ago has actually grown into a fairly good sized company, and we have over 30 products, and we make everything from soaps to facial care to deodorants. They're all natural, body lotions and bug repellents even. Everything is made with plant-derived natural ingredients. So if you're looking to reduce the toxins in your personal care products, I just thought I would mention valleygreennaturals.com. And for anyone listening to this podcast, you can use promo code HEALTHY at checkout to receive a 15% discount off your first order. So that's valleygreennaturals with an S.com, or you can simply click the link in the episode description below.